My name is Betty Jean Cruz. I'm co-chair of the Bobble Inc. Roundtable, and today this presentation is going to focus mostly on the roundtable process, not so much on the Bobble Inc. You've heard that from other speakers. But I am past president of the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. I was president there from 2008 to 11, so I worked with Peter Jeffrey for a number of years and totally respect the knowledge that he has. He has explained a lot about OFA to you, but species at risk was always one of my favorite files there, mostly because I wanted to lobby for you to leave us alone. We need to farm. But as I got more involved, I could see how, like all other lobbying we did, if you offer a win-win solution, we really do find a solution. This morning I mentioned that farmers own 85% of the privately owned land in the province. The relevance of that is that we are affected by almost every ministry and their regulations, not just MNR, but almost every ministry that you can talk about affects farmers. And that is also private land. It's not your parkland, it's not empty land, it's someone's land the same as your front yard is. And I have one farm, it's only 25 acres, but it's between Walmart and Tim Hortons. You ought to try and combine the plastic bags on that. It doesn't work. So farmers are faced with those kind of challenges all the time. Meadowlark was added to our main mandate in 2012 because of similar habitat requirements, you know that. The slides, though, will just refer to Bobble Inc. And there's been a loss of a lot of natural grassland habitat with the settlement and the growth of this province for food production, for development, for transportation routes, and for resources. You've also heard that the challenge of Bobble Inc. and their nesting time. The crucial time for harvest of hay is June, July, right in the middle of that harvest time. And some dairy farmers are even getting the best quality hay now and starting to harvest it in May. So to put off that harvest is simply not possible and not economical. It all boils down to finding a balance between the bird, the farmer, and the growth of the economy. With every situation, you have risks along with those opportunities. And in setting up the Bobble Inc. Roundtable process, focused efforts mitigated these risks. We needed a manageable number of people, ideally 9, anywhere between 7 and a dozen. Well, we ended up with the baker's dozen of 13. You run the risk of lack of appropriate expertise because it is such a broad topic. And the lack of thorough representation. Everyone feels affected. And there's hardly a meeting that any of us have been to that there isn't somebody at the table with a personal agenda. But the potential for failure of the process was one that worried me, not because the process was wrong, but because it was managed wrong. And at the Bobble Inc. Roundtable, we'll feel a little ownership of showing how this process works and can be used and replicated again. There are our members, John McCracken of Bird Studies Canada and myself were asked to co-chair this. John led the working group contracted by MNR to prepare the provincial recovery strategy for the Bobble Inc. A lot of thought went into the composition of this committee, and I don't think it's any accident that it was co-chaired by a specialist on Bobble Inc. and someone with farm experience. Yeah, that worked well. We had Secretariat Sport from the government. As I mentioned earlier, we've got 2 ministries working together on this. And on farm issues, we've always said, with being impacted with all those ministries more than once, we need more than one at the table. We have MNR and the Ministry of Agriculture and Food sitting at the table with us through this process, and that is crucial to its success. Ian Crawford recently replaced Tosh Garrick, and I would like to thank Tosh on the work that he did in helping bring this roundtable together and all the support he provided since the beginning. Peter gave you some information on agriculture. His numbers are a little more up to date than mine. I apologize, Peter, I didn't get time to call you. My old files said we still had 57,000 farms. Peter says 51, but that is the problem. We are losing farms. So potential Bobble Inc habitat impacts over half of those, 30,000 Ontario farms. Peter mentioned total farmland acreage of what, 13.3 million acres, I think you said. And hay and fodder are almost 4.5 million acres of that. And with Peter, I agree in disagreeing with Ron. The farmers that talk to me are not quiet, Ron. They are angry and they are suspicious. And they mistrust the government because they are so afraid that something is going to be forced upon them, and there isn't the knowledge to know that it is impossible for them to do. If they're quiet about anything, they're quiet that they have an endangered species on the farm. That isn't helping anyone. So why will a roundtable work now? Well, it's acknowledged that inspection and enforcement doesn't work. It's not particularly effective, it's expensive, it takes a lot of manpower. And as I have learned, it's more productive to work on win-win solutions. The group of people at this table, we have found champions for the Bobble Inc Roundtable approach. I think the stars were aligned to make this one work right now. A roundtable requires mutual respect and understanding. And so we needed to set certain priorities out early in the process. So at our second meeting in October of 2011, we agreed to actually write those down, to give them some credibility. The obvious one, sure, there will be discussions on action items, and we work towards consensus. Any decisions to be made have to be made at a meeting, not by emails, not by one-on-one conversations. That's simple good governance. But when you voice it, acknowledge it, you tend to remember it. We also realized we needed more information. All those experts around the table, and we didn't know what each other knew. And the last one I think that's on that slide is the fact that as much as you try to work on consensus, there was the potential from day one that there would be two opposite points of view, and ne'er the twain shall meet. And so if the group was split, we were going to be in a real problem. But if one or two of us had a perspective that just simply could not reach consensus with the rest of the group, we decided and agreed that any report, any recommendations we did, we would also acknowledge that other point of view, an addendum on every report. So when our recommendations go to the minister, both sides are there on issues where they need to be. We needed to clear the air. First of all, make sure we didn't have any personal agendas at the table, so we started out with some education sessions. At the very first meeting, we had presentations by M&R to outline the provincial perspective, by the Ministry of Agriculture and Food to explain the challenges to the livestock industry. John McCracken explained the needs of the birds, the species itself, by other sectors to outline their challenges. And as we were working on challenges of the other sectors, we could also learn what they could maybe offer to a solution. We've had presentations on the current permitting process, on overall benefit, on, what was the other one, Safe Harbour. We had a research forum to find out what research was being done now and what researchers might want to do that would be in conjunction with where the roundtable needed to go. The roundtable was set up by government to offer input on long-term solutions for the protection and recovery of Bobble Inc. And so we offer that advice in these four categories: funding for stewardship initiatives, It's been said here before that government is not in the practice of compensation for habitat protection for stewardship initiatives, although there are stewardship programs out there. But the realities outlined is that when you are in the business of producing food, there are economics involved. So we have yet to address that, but it is something that you can't just assume the government is not going to pay. Another thing that occurred to me in the other presentation is that government is all of us. We're all paying taxes. It's not something separate from us. So society has to decide where it wants to put its money and get that impression, that message to its leaders. Is there an opportunity here? Are there income or incentive opportunities for all sectors? Is there an opportunity for owners of rural land to voluntarily provide habitat to counter that destroyed by other initiatives? One more term of reference, research, to learn exactly what is needed. There is a lot we don't know. And monitoring. It came up that monitoring is crucial to measuring the success. Outreach and extension to educate owners of land on how and what they can do to enhance this habitat. And then recognition for outstanding habitat and stewardship initiatives. We set up a subcommittee for agricultural practices that developed a list of potential agricultural practices that benefit grassland species while continuing to allow agricultural operations for those that can do it. The overall benefits and safe harbor subcommittees has focused on developing principles to guide the implementation of a benefits exchange, and will also look at principles for developing safe harbor agreements. The research committee to identify key research priorities for when ministries are looking at applications for their stewardship funds and government research. And communications and outreach subcommittee, mostly to bust some myths around Bobble Inc. and their survival. That's where all the paranoia is coming from. To also identify and promote the Roundtable and the work that we're doing, and to identify some stewardship activities. We came up with 2 recommendations presented to Deputy Lawrence in July of 2012, the first 2 of them, and they were accepted by government. The last 2 recommendations were presented just last month. Government is in the process of review on those, so I can't give you much detail on that. I can give you more detail on the other recommendations if we have some time at the end of the presentations. So, what happens now? What happens on October 31st of 2014? The farmers need to know that pretty soon, because like you plan your business, they're planning their crops well in advance. So we have to address what will happen to or for or with agriculture. We have to offer workable solutions that will respect society's desire to protect species while enabling economic growth in Ontario and enabling food production. The Bobble Inc. Roundtable, if it's any example of how roundtables can work, is working well. Membership choices were excellent. Homework and training were very much needed. At times we felt we were taking forever to get off the ground. There was a lot of training to be done with each other, and that was well worth the time. The whole idea of 2 ministries involved. Will this roundtable work for all species at risk? I doubt very much. There is the time and the finances to do that. But when the situation is right, I would definitely recommend this process again when the time and the situation are right. Mostly the right people at the table. Down there in small print, I wasn't going to say anything because it's just a little, artsy, but this is some Zen Buddhism wisdom that's in my agenda. It says, "The day has now ended, our lives are shorter, now we look carefully, what have we done?" And that's the way we need to approach this. Thank you very much.